Hello, today I'm presenting the film Inside Out for Psychology 202, presented by James, Maya, and Ellie. For the film introduction, Inside Out is an animated film that illustrates psychology from an animation standpoint. Inside Out relates to emotion, memory, and development throughout a young adolescent's mind. A young girl named Riley has 5 core emotions: sadness, joy, fear, anger, and disgust. These characters guide her thoughts throughout the interactions and, most importantly, shaping her into who she is. As Riley experiences stressful situations, the film highlights essential concepts including basic emotions, emotion regulation, core memories, and adapting to feelings. Inside Out provides a perspective through Riley's mind, engaging a way of emotions and working together to shape human behavior. The summary of the film: Riley is an 11-year-old girl from Minnesota. Her parents decide to make an altering life change of moving to the big city, San Francisco. Inside Riley's mind, she has 5 emotions that work in the headquarters, helping guide her thoughts and emotions throughout the movie. Joy and sadness go on a journey, passing through places such as the Imagination Land, Dream Productions, and Memory Dump, trying to make their way back to the headquarters. Along the way, Joy realizes that sadness plays an important role in Riley's emotions. By the end, Riley expresses her sadness about the move, reconnecting with her parents, and the 5 emotions start to work together again. Chapter 10, Concept 1, Basic Emotions. How the film shows the concept basic emotions. Inside Out visually shows how each character represents basic emotions, their memories and behaviors. Each emotion has a distinct color, role, and psychology purpose. Each emotion is given a human-like character. This makes it easy to see and understand throughout the film. Joy is yellow, happiness and energy. Sadness is blue, low mood or withdrawal. Anger is red, has heat intensity. Fear is purple and alerts anxiety. Disgust is green and avoidance and rejection. So these colors match typical emotion associations used in psychology and the culture. First, we have happiness, which is joy. So, how does joy relate to happiness? Joy brings one of the most important emotions one human can experience in life, such as promoting social bonding, motivation, and how to approach throughout certain behaviors. Joy at least tries to keep an upbeat environment. Who doesn't enjoy that? Joy also shares important traits such as being optimistic in certain situations and being socially engaged, often taking control at the emotion console in the movie. This can also reflect that happiness can be dominant from a young age at childhood as well. Next, we have sadness. How does sadness relate to the emotion sad? Sadness is part of life, an emotion we feel when some things don't go as planned. For sadness, she shows the emotion signaling the need for help, promoting social connection, and allowing emotional processing for the young girl in the movie. Although Joy sees sadness as a problem, ultimately, sadness is necessary for growth and healing, especially in stressful events. When sadness touches a memory, Riley, the young teenager being portrayed in the movie, Riley processes reality and comfort. In a scene where Riley cries in front of her parents, she allows herself to feel support and connection between her parents. This portrays sadness very well. Next, we have terror, which is fright. How does fright relate to the emotion of being scared or frightened? Fear constantly protects us by triggering avoidance or safety behaviors. Fear, the character in the movie, constantly scans the environment for danger, such as analyzing worst-case scenarios or plugging in hazard reports. Fear actions on the first day of school when he looks in the bathroom mirror as Riley helps keep her safe and cautious. Next, we have rage, anger. How does anger relate to the emotion of having rage? Anger signifies injustice, blocked goals, or overall when a situation turns upside down. Anger can click on a light for boundaries, assertiveness, or even impulsive decisions. Anger functions in the film to keep Riley from setting her own boundaries and being treated fairly. When Riley gets asked about her first day of school, she gets upset because her parents just don't get it. Next, we have disgusting, which is disgust. How does disgust relate to the basic emotions? Disgust evolves in protecting us from harmful or even contaminated things, such as bad smells, toxins, or playing with our moral judgments. Disgust influences moral judgment and rejection, and even avoidance. Disgust's overall job is to keep her safe from physical and social danger. Disgust shapes Riley into her taste preferences and social interactions as well. An example from the movie is when Riley is served broccoli in her pizza, which Riley does not like, and Riley quickly rejects the pizza, showing her rejection.
Concept 2, Chapters 9 and 11, Erikson's Psychosocial Theory. What is Erikson's theory? Erikson believed the human development happens across the entire lifespan, not just in the childhood. So Erikson proposed 8 stages, each defined by central conflict that people must resolve. These 8 stages are infancy, toddlerhood, early childhood, school age, adolescence, young adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. But within Inside Out, which is our film, we see Riley, who's an 11-year-old, mainly within industry versus inferiority, which is school age, and the beginning of identity versus role confusion, which is adolescence. So let's talk about the first stage, infancy, trust versus mistrust. In the first years of life, infants face the crisis of trust versus mistrust. So this connection to Riley would be baby Riley's earliest memory in Inside Out shows her parents' consistent care, which brings joy as her dominant emotion, and illustrates the successful resolution of Erikson's trust versus mistrust and stages. So the family island this goes with is Family Island, which glows whenever Riley interacts with her parents. This island represents the foundation of her identity which is built on trust and emotional security. So why does this matter? Early trust gives Riley resilience to face later stages. So it's a strong foundation to build on for the rest of her life. Moving on to the next stage, stage 2, which is toddlerhood, autonomy versus shame and doubt. So autonomy versus shame and doubt is within the ages of 1 to 3 and focuses on toddlers developing independence and confidence. So this connection to Riley and Inside Out is within her playful independence on Goofball Island, which represents autonomy. So Goofball Island film visualizes the stage through Goofball Island, which represents Riley's confidence in expressing herself and being super silly like a monkey. And this island shows how autonomy builds personality. So later on in the film, it collapses, which symbolizes the challenges and doubts that she's having within that time. However, it is able to build back up because of that solid foundation. So stage 3 is early childhood, which is initiative versus guilt. So within Erikson's theory, this is between ages 3 and 6, and it basically says encouragement builds confidence and harsh criticism leads to guilt. We see a lot of the encouragement within Inside Out. So the connection to Riley and Inside Out is Riley's imaginative play, and curiosity shows her initiative. So she has a lot of imaginary friends, especially one, and so joy reflects her confidence when supported, while sadness and fear reveal the risk of guilt when she fears failure or rejection. So Friendship Island is very symbolized within this stage, and it's Riley's initiative in building social bonds, with its strength showing her confidence in relationships and taking action. Moving on to our 4th stage, school age, which is the stage that Riley is in within the movie mostly. And this is industry versus inferiority. So this is between the ages of 6 to 12, and it basically says encouragement builds pride and competence, while repeated failure or harsh criticism leads to feeling of inferiority and low self-worth. So the connection to Riley is shown a lot within friendship, hockey, schoolwork, which joy reflects as success. And then you also see sadness and fear, though, revealed within these as the risk of inferiority when she struggles or feels inadequate. So she moves to a new team within this movie and doesn't feel like she's playing up to her standards, or some players are better. So she's not feeling like she's able to succeed within this setting. And the island that this is shown in is Hockey Island, where Riley's competence and confidence is mostly shown. But within this, we see the island collapse at the end of the movie, reflecting the threat of inferiority when she feels unable to succeed. So industry builds on initiative. Riley's Hockey Island shows success builds confidence, lack of support, risk inferiority. So then we have our fifth stage, though, which is the last one I will be talking about, and that is adolescence. We see this a lot at the end of the movie when all the islands come crashing down and are getting rebuilt, and we see it in a lot in the second Inside Out, though. And this is identity versus role confusion. So in adolescence, it's between the ages of 12 to 18, and they explore the values, beliefs, roles to form a sense of self. So you're really trying to figure out who you truly are. In connection to Riley for this one, the first film ends with Riley at age 11 on the cusp of adolescence. Her emotions prepare her for identity formation by showing how earlier stages shape her resilience. So for the islands of personality, this one is shown within all of them, and they represent the foundation of her identity, so a solid foundation. So their collapse and rebuilding symbolizes her transition towards adolescence and trying to figure out who she truly is. Why does this matter? This matters because Erikson argued each stage builds on the last. And so, for example, Riley's strong island show that her childhood experience gives her the stability to face adolescence. Without these foundations, role confusion would be more likely.
Okay, so our third subject that we went over, or the group decided on, was based in chapter 10. We went over intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic and motivation, the definition of that is that it's behaviors that are performed because they bring a sense of personal satisfaction. They arise more from internal factors, so like a sense of what would bring joy to that person. An example of that is Joy being the leader of the emotions and Riley's well-being. That internal motivation is because she feels like she's leading her down the right path. So it's bringing her the joy. So there's some goods and bads of intrinsic motivation. The goods is that you are more passionate about the subject if it's something that you're like feeling with inside yourself. An example is that is Joy likes to see Riley happy, so she keeps doing the things that make her happy for her own pleasure. Another good is that she's motivated to meet the goals. You're motivated to meet the goals that you set for yourself. It's the same type of example as above. Joy's motivated to see her happy. The bad is that you may appear selfish. An example of that is that she was upset at the idea of sadness kind of taking control for a little bit. And then another one is it requires self-regulation. Um, an example of not having that self-regulation is an example of the movie when they kind of got launched out and they had to work their way back. Extrinsic motivation, definition of that is that it's behaviors that are performed in order to receive something from others. And it arises from an external factor. An example of that is joining Riley to be happy. And so that's kind of the motivation of making it back to the headquarters and overall getting control of everything again. Good and bad of it. The good, there's an immediate goal of things to focus on if things seem kind of bleak or just bad. It gives you an ultimate goal to focus on and an immediate goal. And then it provides like a clear established goal. And bad of that, people may become more focused on the reward rather than for the reason of doing what you're doing. The goals are kind of very superficial and then may lead to unfortunate sacrifices that you weren't expecting. Motivation throughout the film. So each emotion you end up seeing display internal and external motivation. You also see the goods and bads of each of them. And then, like I said, each emotion and multiple characters end up displaying those emotions throughout the film. Does the film portray psychology correctly? The short answer, yes. I mean, you see every bit of it. You see every example of a topic that we learned throughout the term. It kind of just depends on what perspective you look at the film. But yeah, short answer, I would say yes. What we've learned about human behavior. So, everyone experiences both internal or intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Um, An example of that for Inside Out was Riley's passion for hockey shows intrinsic motivation, while encouragement from her parents and coaches reflects extrinsic motivation. So the idea of making sure that they're happy for her. Together, these forces show how behavior is shaped. The next one was Erickson's psychosocial theory, in particular the 8 stages. So development unfolds through the stages, each with a central conflict. Um, Riley and her personality islands, if you haven't seen the movie, she has different islands, all kind of come together, and you see each one of the psychosocial stages come together. And then the whole movie is about the emotions. So you end up encountering basic emotions. I mean, they're labeled differently, but you end up seeing the goods and bads and everything of each one. And then overall bigger picture by examining these 3 topics that my group decided on, you end up seeing how people are driven and the combination of other things that you learn throughout the year come together as well. Group roles, Maya did the emotions, Ellie did the psychosocial theory from Erickson, and then I did um, the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and then we all just kind of came together to put it together. And then the references are the textbook and the film. So thanks for watching.